to the May 30th, 2019 Norwood Airport Commission meeting. We have NCM here filming this meeting. Is there any other entity filming this meeting or recording?
Chris Starvin, Boston Executive Helicopter.
Thank you very much. One of the first things, make sure all your electronic devices are turned off so there's no unnecessary interruptions. This is a special meeting to handle a couple of items that are time sensitive, and then we're going to go into interviewing consultants for the engineering of at Norwood Memorial Airport. But first up, we have Mass DOT pay request number 2 from Tower Construction, the amount of $91,774.70, and that's for the SRE building fit out or the Mark C. Welch administration building. So I would look for a motion, pay estimate number 2, $91,774.70.
So moved.
Motion made
Second.
and second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. The next up is in regards to that building project, the SRE building. We do have a project clerk of the works that inspects the work on a daily basis, Victor Serena. This is his second invoice, and this is for the pay period of May 6th to May 24th, 97.5 hours, $35 an hour, for a total price of $3,412.50. I look for a motion to pay that as well.
Motion.
Motion made
Second.
and second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. Russ, we have some information about the office lease termination.
Mr. Chairman, on April 10th, 2001, the Norwood Airport Commission entered into an office lease with S&T Realty Trust, and the original term on the office lease to include the meeting room that we are sitting in, the term was to run until December 31st, 2020, unless the tenant, the Airport Commission, opts to terminate the lease on the first day of any month with a 6-month advance notice to Flight Level. So I am asking for a motion to give Flight Level the 6-month notice on the termination of the lease, and that will give us enough time to complete the Welch Administration Building and to be moved in.
Any questions on that?
Will it take the full 6 months to do that?
We can't give them any less than 6 months notice based on the lease.
You asked if you...
I have not asked.
Well, I think so my first question remains, how long would it really take to...
We think it will be substantially complete by June 30th, probably looking at not being ready to move in until August, September possibly. So we could, if Flight Level were to approve it, ask for maybe a 2-month grace period on that to get out of the 6-month notice.
Well, they're here, you could ask them. Why don't you ask, inform, after the meeting maybe?
Okay. Rather than put them on the spot.
Yes.
Okay.
So is there a motion to let Flight Level know of the termination and for the manager to approach them and to consider
Possibly month to month
possibly month to month and
after August.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see, we have there's no reason we wouldn't be in there by September.
Right.
I would say
September
I
is
would say
probably
that's a good.
So, all right, yeah, you can just ask.
Okay.
No hard feelings either way, but.
So a motion to terminate the lease, and the airport manager is going to work with the landlord.
Right, so that's so moved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion made
Second.
and second. In favor? Aye. Opposed? None. Actually, has everyone signed in that's here?
No, I haven't seconded.
Well, the consultants, you guys can sign in to sit down, but thank you. Anyone else, Russ, not signed in, or
I have not seen it. I'm sure there are a bunch of folks that,
just within the room right now?
5 for 5. Plus one. Okay, you said the consultants, you're gonna have them sign?
Yeah, that's great.
I think, we just have one, Mr. Chairman.
There's one.
Yes.
Okay, can you
Sure.
write that down, that unless that person wants to sign in. Chris, do you want to sign in? That's a negative. Thank you. Okay. Before we get to the consultants, so on April 3rd, a notice was given out to airport users that an RFP was available for Lot A, B, C, which included tie downs and the construction of the aircraft hangar. That April 3rd notice went to all the users, is that correct, Mr. McGuire?
Yes.
Plus it was advertised in the newspaper and on the town website.
Yes.
And it was a May 6th due date for people to submit a response to that RFP. On April 26th, Boston Executive Helicopter sent a letter with 27 comments and questions about that RFP. The Airport Commission, along with our attorneys, addressed those. So on May 1st, addendum number 1 was issued. And, and that addendum number 1 addressed the 27 comments in the BEH letter of April 26th. With that, the RFP due date was changed to May 15th. May 8th, we had a Norwood Airport Commission meeting and voted to change the terms of the lease from 30 years to 20 years. So on May 10th, addendum number 2 was issued, changing the lease term from 30 years to 20 years. RFP date was changed to, the due date was changed to May 20th. May 20th, the RFP due date, we had one submittal, which was flight level. So I don't know what the rest of the commission feels how we should proceed, but our initial plan was to have a 5-member committee review the submittals and attend a presentation by the prospective lessees. And these would be non-NAC members, and that was just the thought process we were having. And they would rate each RFP per the evaluation form to remove any subjectivity. There will also be 2 members from the airport, could be 2 NAC members or NAC member and a commissioner. They would not rate the RFP, once again, so to remove any subjectivity on multiple submittals. The 3-member committee would recommend to the NAC the best proposal based on the highest score based on this evaluation form. Since there is only one proposal submitted, do we follow that same format, or do we have the lone applicant present at the June 12th NAC meeting and have the NAC rate the proposal using the evaluation form and recommend to or not to accept the proposal? So I'll leave that up for discussion right now.
I mean, I think that we should at least hear what I have to say.
Yeah, I don't think that, I think initially we were gonna ask different people from maybe someone from the FinCom, someone from the board, select board. and-
planning board.
Yeah, I don't think it really would be necessary now, we just have one proposal. I think we could handle that at a meeting, just have them tell us what their proposal is, we already have it really. And just evaluate it using the evaluation criteria that we have here, it's pretty detailed, so I think we can all do that. Do you need a motion for that, or you?
I think if that's the way the commission feels, a motion to invite the lone applicant, flight level, to the June 12th NAC meeting to provide a presentation of their proposal.
I think that's probably the best way to handle it. Motion.
Motion made
Second?
and second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. Okay, Russ, we're all set now. We're going to the engineering consultant presentations.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we need the batting order for the three.
Okay, so I've come up with one. So I have first up Airport Solutions Group. We do a presentation, it's a 20-minute presentation, and then there'll be questions from the Airport Commission and Airport Manager alone. And even though this is a public meeting, I request that the other engineering consultants provide professional courtesy and not attend the presentation by the engineering firm that's up to bat.
Can I ask you how you come up with the batting order? Is it a formula or?
I
Is it
a bunch of ping pong balls.
Oh, all right.
Nope.
All right.
We could change the order. So
No.
first we have Airport Solutions Group, number 2 will be Gale Associates, and number 3 will be Du Bois and King.
Okay.
So if that's okay, we'll get right to it with Airport Solutions Group. Welcome.
Thank you.
Do you need space?
Yeah,
You guys can sit at the table here.
yeah, I could sit here, and is it possible we project an image over there? Yeah, I just want to get this out later. Yeah.
Hey, good.
Yeah.
Long time,
I know. How you been?
Great, how are you?
Good. Good, thanks.
Still
Oh, yeah.
here?
It's in the
Still here. They won't let me stay.
You want to retire? We're gonna go right over there. They get everybody? Mark.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Surprise, surprise. Hey, yeah. Mike, Mike. Where?
I don't think he won't make it.
In court? I wanted to go on. Oh, John didn't make it. I think we were screwed.
Well, full early.
Is this Russ?
I did tell Russ.
It is,
that
but
I thought it was
it's,
it's 3:30.
Let's see how it
I think I
goes.
saw that.
Shouldn't take long.
I think I may have replied to all.
I got no
Take your time.
Yeah, it's just at 3:30.
We know you have a
I just don't.
busy schedule.
No, I get it.
Chris, if you
When I
can,
first started, it was at Mike's house.
How over there?
That lunch. It moved from lunchtime to.
Yeah, I don't want to cause you wait. It's just it's difficult.
Yeah, but I mean, we can.
Did you see 2 airplanes in 2 days?
we may have to switch it over. to Chris, just- Yeah, why don't we
2
try?
citations.
Well, no, what I'm saying is, put it right here so we can shoot it.
2 of them went down in two separate incidents in Florida. It was DEF fluid, the diesel emission fluid that we use was in the jet fuel of the flood. One pilot died, the other one was air ambulance. They were able to land in the airport. Dual engines. It's a huge problem down in Florida.
why down here?
A distributor happened out of California that had avgas in the jet fuel. He's getting jet fuel in the avgas. And Chevron.
A little?
Chair, yeah.
5,000 aircraft engines.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
It almost broke Chevron.
Your power.
No such a word.
No. There's none in here.
If you need one, I might be able to dig one up in a few minutes.
What do you need?
Extension.
cord.
Just-
I think we're not gonna be the only
Mark-
ones,
Mark-
we're not gonna be the only ones who are gonna have the issue either, because I think other people have a.
Start rearranging the room.
Like the bottom of your Let me see if I can get one.
Jim, give us a
So did you hand them out?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you go down there.
Yeah, it's not a match.
Yeah.
Right down from the one.
Are you really?
They built this house.
Oh, they built a house.
They tore
Yeah. Yeah.
it down and built it.
Here you go, Chris.
When did you go down?
I was down.
What board is that right there?
First thing Sunday morning. I had the on-call.
Perfect.
And so I drove down Sunday morning, and a buddy of mine covered me Sunday afternoon, Monday.
So you were stay down
Yes.
Sunday night?
Sunday night, Monday, I drove up.
Yeah.
Sunday.
She was not the best,
Uh,
because I was gonna come back Sunday, Monday. So many sounds like. Just come back Tuesday morning.
I don't know how to do this.
Yeah, no problem. It's on.
Oh,
I'm just gonna do that. Now, I love it down there.
closer than anything.
You go out to eat at all?
Yeah, sometimes. Usually.
Hold on a second, Craig.
Actually, I went to Marshland too. Katuitt sandwich.
What is it?
Marshland, T-O.
So we can use these right here to adjust.
Oh, right up the tile.
There we go. Does that look clear?
Yeah?
Yeah, it does. We can hit the lights, maybe that, and if you, Bob, if you just hang 2 minutes, Kevin Shaughnessy, he ran out to get an extension.
Sure. So,
Shift it.
Chris, yeah, that's good. There's a knob in the front there that you can raise and lower the, yeah, lower it a little bit. Okay, you can play with these right here. That's gonna be too high. You want to just do it against the wall?
How would it be to do this?
That works.
Move it over a little bit. Do it against the wall. Okay.
I'll get it level.
Yeah.
There we go.
What's wrong, Colin?
We'll set this up.
Yeah. Don't block anyone's.
Have you been upstairs at the building?
Yeah. Really?
The size of the meeting.
Oh, good. Yeah, each time.
Yes, the first time I was upstairs,
How'd you get in? Did we talk?
right to the top.
Yeah, that's what I gotta do.
Now you get a perspective, you see how all the rooms are laid out.
Mhm.
Move the electrical, high end.
Thanks, Kevin.
Hey, am I in your seat?
Well, you are,
I
yeah.
think that's an empty one.
But I can just, I just want to grab my thing. That's all. Let me grab my stuff.
You see?
That's all I need. Keep it okay.
Sure you can see okay?
Thanks.
All right.
All right, so we're all set. Bob, thank you for coming in, and I'll let you take it away.
Great. Well, thank you for inviting us to come in. We're very excited for this opportunity. We're very happy to be shortlisted for an interview. This is just a very brief agenda of how our presentation will go. With me today, by the way, is Chris Willenborg, our Executive Vice President and Director of Engineering, Craig Schuster. My name is Bob Ballard, I'm the President of Airport Solutions Group. So the projects on your CIP are fairly standard, with one exception, of course, is the lease buyback project that was listed in the RFP. This would be a typical org chart on any given project in particular, particularly if it's construction related. We would propose, obviously, ASG would be the prime for engineering and planning. We would sub out heavy lift environmental, geotechnical, and survey. And clearly, if it's ASMP or AIP, try to help you fulfill your DBE obligations. A little bit about our company. We were founded in 2006. We hit our 13-year anniversary in March of this year. Since that time, we have kind of methodically and slowly grown the company. At the time of the writing of the proposal that you have before you, we had 10 people. We now have 11 people. We had a new hire just a couple of weeks ago, an engineer with 5 plus or minus years of experience, proven to be very productive. So we're certainly the smallest player out there in the world of airport consultants, but interestingly enough, we are the biggest consultant in Massachusetts in terms of airport on-calls. We have been very successful getting new clients, and we have 10 on-call airport clients, 7 of which are AIP airports. We're very happy with that success, and we think it's a direct result, really, of the work we put into our work. We stress quality, cost, and schedule all the time, and we have a senior management team, and these are my 2 most senior people, Craig and Chris, that really lead by example. We have a great management team with a lot of years of experience, a lot of airport design experience, a lot of construction experience, and we have a good cadre of young engineers, and again, we're up to 11 people, so we've made pretty great strides in the market in Massachusetts anyway. We do a lot of other work across the country. We're working in Washington, D.C. We're working for a company out in the Midwest, doing some ECRP work. We've worked elsewhere across the country, but our primary focus is New England, and Norwood really is our sweet spot type airport. Large GA facility. We do have several commercial service facilities. One of our clients is the Barnstable Airport. Another one is New Bedford. They both have commercial service. They're also very active with corporate GA, as well as Westfield and a few others. We have significant knowledge, I think, with our management team. I'm going to give you a list in a few minutes of our management team and who's on there, and I think you'll agree. I think you'll know some of the names on that list that we have quite a good group of people. So this is our management team. With the exception of Chris, everyone else is civil engineer and PE. We're based in Burlington, Mass. You may remember Larry Gallo. He's done some work here in the past. Larry's been on our team for a while. In fact, he's on a construction site right now down in Marshfield. Larry's been invaluable to us. I think he's done some inspection services over the years at Norwood, so he knows the airport well. Craig Schuster, obviously, in a previous life for a different consultant years ago, has experience at Norwood. Myself and Chris, through our experiences with the MassDOT Aeronautics Division and myself with the Massachusetts Aeronautics Commission, have quite a few years of experience interacting with Norwood Management Commission and projects over the years, and I think you have seen that in our proposal. Combined, with the exception of Chris, again, who is not a civil engineer, but the 5 other people on this list have a combined 223 years of civil engineering experience. Most of it is in airport work. So the previous slide showed a typical org chart. We have several folks on our team, business partners we like to call them, who help us provide environmental services. Epsilon would normally be our consultant of choice for Norwood, and if selected, we would probably look to work with Epsilon, given their experience here. We cannot show them as a sub in our proposal because they have an exclusive, or DuBois King has an exclusive with them. But we work with Epsilon, we work with GZA, we work with actually several other environmental companies, all of them very, very good. As far as geotech, we work with Cole and Gillespie quite a bit. We would use them on a construction project, primarily a pavement type project, in 2 areas during design. They would do a lot of the subsurface explorations for us, so they do the borings, they'd get us the geotech report and help us interpret some of that. During construction, we would employ, generally speaking, the same company, although it's every once in a while we have both on the same project if it's a big project, but they would help us during testing with construction. With Topo Survey, we have a number of different consultants we use from time to time. We also have our own ability to do survey in-house, but our go-to companies are Alpha and Hancock. They're both local to Eastern Massachusetts. They both have a lot of experience, as does actually everyone on this list, with airport work. As far as MWDBE participation, again, if it's a state ASMP or a federal AIP project, you know, you have the requirement to try to fulfill your MWDBE participation. We can go to LEC. We've used them in the past. Solom Architects. We realize that none of the projects on your CIP show any building work, but Solom has always been a partner on our team. In fact, we're just finishing a project right now with Bridgewater State University with Solom. We've worked with them several times in the past on building projects. And AI engineers, they've assisted us with field services in the past, and even at times when we're really crazy, design services. All of those are in one form or another, either an MBE or a WBE. All of them are DBEs. So as far as AIP is concerned, we get it covered there. This graphic right here is not in your printout that we just handed out. I added it late today, and it's the same graphic you see right next to it on that board. And the reason I did is I thought it was a good example of the work we've done at New Bedford. Taking a look at the projects you have in your CIP, this one program of projects at New Bedford, I think does a wonderful is a wonderful example of work on one airport that we've done that highlights all the work that you have in your 5-year CIP. So for instance, the first project out of the gate is a fencing project. At least it's listed in that order anyway. I'm not sure if it's that exact order in your CIP, but we did a wildlife fence that goes around the end of runway 5. And let me just back up for a second. The purpose of this program of projects, it was $30 million in total, a little over $30.2 million worth of work. Construction started in December, January of 2009, and it ended in 2015, really 2014, but for all intents and purposes. So the point was to reconstruct runway 523, which is this runway here. The north arrow you can see is going in that direction. However, we couldn't reconstruct the runway without doing the safety areas. We couldn't do the safety areas without getting the airspace cleared. We couldn't do that until we did an obstruction analysis. As you can see, I'm building to all the projects on your CIP is captured wonderfully in this just one project. We've done many examples of the same kind of work. So back in the early 2000s, we came up with a CIP and a list of projects, 10 in all, culminating with reconstruction and extension of 523. $30 million in total of work. We started with tree clearing, and we did 320 acres under this one project alone. It was a huge project. It's the biggest tree clearing project in Massachusetts on an airport. We next had to construct mitigation sites. This was one, there's one there, and there's one over there. There are several different rare species on here. We have the eastern box turtle, which is the primary one of concern, and we have several areas of mitigation sites there. We also have the coastal swamp amphipod that we had to deal with, but it really was nothing physical we had to do. But nevertheless, we had to mitigate for the runway extension. We extended the runway 400 feet in that direction, but this entire area off the runway 5 end, if you know Norwood, if you know New Bedford, is a big swamp. It's the Aponequansett Swamp. So in order to construct a compliant 1,000-foot safety area, which is that right there, we had to fill. We had to fill about 7 acres of wetlands. Again, it was the biggest wetland fill, I think, in the New England region. And there was a 2-to-1 mitigation ratio, which means we had to construct at least 14 acres of mitigation. At the end of the day, we constructed nearly 16 acres of mitigation. There is a river that runs right through there. You can't really see it very well, but we had to mitigate for floodplain, we had to mitigate for bank impacts and wetland impacts. The next project on there was to relocate some major utilities. There were 2 twin 36-inch water mains. One was 100 years old, one was 110 years old. We had to relocate them around the end of runway 23 in order to construct the safety area over there. That was done as a separate project. And then, again, we culminated with reconstruction and extension of 523. Now, the 523 project alone was $12.5 million of construction. It involved several different methods of pavement rehab, or reconstruction, full depth, partial depth, and mill and overlay in the intersection between 523 and runway 1432. This is 1432. But we also had to extend 200 feet on both ends, so we had the taxiway extensions, we did wetlands fill. It was a big project, and we had to relocate those water mains, a gas main, and a 600 pair telephone, 8-inch high-pressure gas main around the same end. So it was quite a big project. Again, the runway itself was $12.5 million, but this kind of exemplifies all the work that you have upcoming in kind of one program of projects. What I'd like to tout about this is we did the programming 7 years in advance, and we came up with $30.2 million for a total program cost, including 10 projects. At the end of the day, after 7 years of work, we came in at $29.9 million, right on target, just under budget, and nailed everyone except one project. We did go over on one. That was the water main project. I can get into that in a minute. And so this is a good transition, I guess, into value engineering. We know that construction, particularly in old facilities like Norwood, like New Bedford, like other airports, you never know what's in the ground. And so we try to really emphasize value engineering, primarily in the design phase if we can. Sometimes it happens during construction, and we try to avoid that, but I have a couple of examples of one win, one loss, just to show you what our experiences are. The point being that we're always trying to think about, what's the best way to construct this. We communicate quite regularly with the airport, the commission, the management team, and tenants and others to find out what the impacts are. Obviously, there's a lot of phasing issues and impacts to tenants that we want to make sure we accommodate. But clearly, we want to get the facility constructed. So we spend a lot of time in-house. We talk to our subs. We do detailed quality takeoff analyses, not just for our actual projects, but we do it during the CIP phase so that we can try to give you really good numbers planning ahead, so we know what the costs are. And with our senior staff, again, it's just invaluable to have that kind of experience. We have a multi-layered approach for quality control. It's a big thing with me. We have one of our senior guys, actually our most senior person, he's got 45 years of experience doing our quality control reviews, and it's completely independent from the project managers and the designers. They take it and he looks at it and marks it up, and we meet and we discuss the design standards. You'll see at the bottom, or just before the last two bullets, we have our own survey equipment, and we go out from time to time when the need arises to get our own shots if necessary, which is always good. So this is an example of a win, we'll call a win with runway 1432. Now that is this runway on the board. That was just completed last year. We're actually finishing up the punch list right now. The project should be done by the end of June, so we're literally pretty much done. We knew we were building an access road off of one of the entrance roads, and you really can't see it, but the access road comes through here. It goes from New Plainville to Old Plainville Road, and it was not there before. It was going through the wetland, going through the woods and through some wetlands. So we knew we were going to impact wetlands. We knew we were going to impact buffer zone, and we programmed in bog mats, knowing that we had to do that for DEP and for the city of New Bedford. What we did not plan for was something we all experience, which is we seem to be getting a lot more rain these days than we ever have in the past. And last year was no exception. We had an unusually high spring rain, and we ran into more problems. So the contractor had to use additional bog mats. Well, that increased right out of the gate. Really, the first thing we did was clear trees, build this access road, and do some fencing work before we could even get to the runway. We already ran into a $100,000 overrun on the bog mats. So what we did was actively during construction, a lot of it was grading related, not just the runway, but the safety areas off both ends. We took a really hard look at runway 32 in particular. We lowered the profile, stayed within FAA design standards, but saved on a lot of structural fill, and came in just under budget at the end of the day with all this work. So we consider it a win. Unfortunately, we didn't anticipate all that rain. We didn't anticipate so many extra bog mats to be used, but we were able to kind of change course in midstream during construction, which is nothing you really want to do, but we did it. And at the end of the day, it came in beautiful. The runway looks great. In fact, this entire airfield is nearly complete with has been reconstructed since 2011, I guess. So the airfield is looking great. This is an example of a loss. I mentioned the only project we ran into a problem was the runway 23. When we were doing doing the utilities around their end there, we knew there was ledge. We had done some ledge probes, come up with a ledge profile, quantify the ledge, the rock excavation, and at the end of the day, when the contractor removed the overburden and he had the luxury of seeing no soil there anymore, he could actually survey the top of the ledge. We discovered that all the ledge probes were hitting all the low spots and all the high spots were in between, so we overran on the ledge. But we were able to, again, monitor the other quantities, and at the end of the day, we only came in at $113,000 over budget, which was just a 2% overrun on the whole project. So we consider that a loss because it exceeded the contract. But on a $5.5 million project, it's not too bad. From page 36 in our proposal, you'll see this list of projects. Those were the ongoing projects. All of them are nearing completion. You see from your proposal that most of them were like 90 or nearly 100% complete. Everyone has advanced even more, and we're very confident that, as you can see on here, half of these anyway, or more than half, will be completed by June 30th of this year, and the rest will be completed by the end of this year. The next table is also on page 36 of your proposal, and this table is nearly identical. I changed it a little bit, but it shows the anticipated projects for FY 2019. And I'll just go through these really, really quickly. Starting at the top with Barnstable, we're done with that project. We've already designed it, we already bid it, we're ready to go to construction. It'll be a fast-track project in June, so that one will be closed out very quickly. Master plan update, we don't have the grant yet for that, we're just waiting. Rehab 1634, design's complete, open bids, ready to go construction. It's scheduled for late summer, early fall. The fuel farm at Marshfield is under construction, and that'll be done for the most part by June 30th. It will run into July, probably close out shortly thereafter in the late summer. The two land acquisitions, so the one land acquisition and the easement acquisition, were both moved to 2020. The New Bedford, first New Bedford project went from an install fence to a permit fence. That will be done by the end of this year. The next two New Bedford projects, the ARF equipment, we don't have the grant yet, but that will get done very quickly. We're ready to go on that one. The design only, we're already 50% complete on that one. It'll probably be 90% complete by June 30th. Orange, you can see, is 20% complete. Like the two Marshfield projects, the oil water separator for Taunton has been pushed to 2020. And then we have 1533. That one is just about done designing. We're opening bids, or we're going to be going to bids shortly on that. Construction is scheduled for next year. And there's an emergency repair to runway 220, which that's been designed, it's been bid, and it's going to get, I think on the 17th of June is the first day of construction. The point of all this is, we have a lot of work. We know we're a small company, and like everyone, most everyone's probably busy, but we have a good handle on all our projects, and we feel like we have the capacity to take on another client. With respect to if there's a thought about changing consultants, I know there's always a little bit of uncertainty there, and we hear it from time to time. But this is a list of in the last 4 years the airports that have left their consultant to come to ASG. So we are living proof that it can be done, and I can say by and large that that all the consultants that we've succeeded have been very good about the transition. It's worked out fairly well, and I think all of us know each other. We're all roughly good friends with each other, and from a personal perspective, we don't see an issue there. And so if we're fortunate enough to be selected, we would love to add you to the list. The next slide is, although this is very, very rare, these are two examples of projects that with airports that not only just change consultants, but they insisted on changing in the middle of a project. Usually it doesn't happen. Usually the existing consultant will finish their work. Here are two examples where the airport said, no, you know what? We want you guys to come in, we want you to finish the project. The 2011 project, I was very reluctant to take over, but after a year, this client, Taunton, said, you know what, we want you to finish that work. We told you we'll let the other consultant finish, but we want you to finish it. So, in conclusion, why select the ASG team? I can say that all the consultants are good. We know them well. We know the quality of their work. We think we do as good or better work than our competition. I can tell you that we try hard. We constantly stress quality, cost, and schedule. I know from my own civil engineering experience, and obviously running the Mass Aeronautics Commission, you got to meet your budgets, you got to meet your schedule, and you got to do good work. And we preach this all the time. It starts from the top. And there are no better examples than Chris and Craig in this regard. They're such a wonderful help with me to try to stress that with the other people. And I think by and large we do a good job in delivering that. I mentioned our team, very experienced. You know, we have a lot of years of civil engineering and airport work. Hopefully, you understand the passion we have towards aviation. We love what we do. It's all we do. We don't do any other type of work. It's just airport work. So we are all in with airport design and planning. Naturally, with our background, we have good relationships you might expect with MassDOT and with FAA and with other state and local regulators. And with Chris and my own experience being directors of the state aeronautics division, I think we bring a different level than maybe some other consultants might have, because we've lived for many years what goes on the inside. We know how that sausage is made. We know the people. We know what buttons to push. We know what they like, and we try to achieve all that with our work product. And with that, I don't know how I'm doing on time, but
Oh, it's perfect. Thank you,
if
Bob.
you have any questions, you have
Yeah,
some.
so open up the questions. I don't know if John, Kevin. Yeah, so Bob, who would be the representative that comes to these meetings from Albany Airport?
Primarily it would be Chris. We've assigned Chris to be the client manager. The way we organize it, we always assign a client manager and a lead project manager. Chris would be the client manager. Honestly, I'll probably still come to some meetings myself, so you may see both of us, or you may see one or the other, but by and large it would be Chris. And when projects come to fruition, it would probably be Chris and Craig.
The Marshfield Fuel Farm, is that a town fuel farm? Or is that,
It's for the airport.
right,
It's
run
a
by the
town-
airport?
It's a town-owned fuel farm.
Shoreline,
Yeah,
But Shoreline has a contract to run the
To
airport.
run it?
It's done under the ASMP program, so it's got state funding.
Mhm.
No FAA funding.
the resident engineering, would that be Larry typically, or?
Typically Larry, yeah.
Okay,
I don't know if you know Steve Riesland.
I know Steve.
Steve's with us too, senior guy. He may be, most likely Larry is our primary go-to person.
Why do I know their names?
Steve Riesland?
Yeah.
He was out here for the pavement maintenance, wasn't Steve out
Yes,
here
when he
for
was
that
with
first?
Stantec.
Yeah.
Yep.
I
Oh,
think
okay.
Steve came out here for that.
And the 7 airports, Bob, that you have, the AIP airports?
Yes, Orange, New Bedford, Taunton, Westfield, Beverly, who am I forgetting? Barnstable,
You got the Georgia airport too, don't you?
New Bedford.
Isn't there one in Georgia as well?
Well, he was the former manager of New Bedford. You're talking about
Eric.
in Macon, yeah, Eric DeLeon. He's on our list.
Okay.
Yeah, Eric's a wonderful guy. He's actually been trying to get us down to Georgia. I'm like, I got enough work here in New England. I'm not ready to move down there, but apparently things don't work quite the same up in the Northeast. A little slower.
Anyone else have questions?
They pretty much answered
All
my
set?
questions in the presentation.
Okay. Bob, thank you.
Great job.
Chris, thank you. Craig, thank you.
Thank you. We'll take just a minute to break down.
Quick question, Mr.
Yeah.
Chairman. What is the timeline that you're looking at to make a decision?
Well, we'll talk amongst ourselves. I think we're hoping today, right?
So June, I would say June at the latest.
June at the latest? Okay.
We gotta have something on board.
Yeah.
Okay. Sooner than later, though. Okay.
Did you sign me in? Good. Getting warm in here.
Getting warm. Need help with any of this?
So I think we're good.
Here in a second. Put these two cords in that bag. Just leave it there and set aside. Throw that in that bag. Get your phone. That's not ours, or
So this is mine.
Please put on the ledge issue up there.
Should I break down the distance?
Please put on the ledge issue
thank you.
up there. It's sand and peat moss.
Yeah, you have to recreate, sometimes they, I don't know if it's with us, do you have to recreate the wetland, and they do that somewhere else?
That's for the.
2 to 1.
Huh?
2 to 1, so each
I
3
mean,
and
we
4.
also got diet and.
Yeah, 14 acres there, reconstruct.
We had to do that just because of the poles. It was crazy. We were moving, what?
Water weeds.
What were they in the back sitting there, long-eared bats or something?
Long
It
hair.
was long-eared, I think it was long-eared, and they were out there recording them, which is kind of, you could tell the difference between the different sounds, whatever. I think you can distinguish between oh, sorry. Oh, no, you- but I'm saying we have to do. Okay, he was a director.
What's his last name?
Mal?
Bob Mal.
What was he? I wonder if this is his Amplex. That's how it is.
Is this still recording us?
Marshall.
Yeah.
Because John was wrong. I'm just kidding.
So you told Gail to come in?
They were outside now, so.
Who figured out that we had the 6-month thing for the lease of these offices? You?
No.
Not happy about that.
Building's coming along across the way, huh?
Looks nice. I went over, Victor showed me around, was it last week? There was kind of a lot going on. They were doing some masonry work and stuff, so they were getting into it.
Yeah, the framing has been going on upstairs and downstairs.
Still, yeah, they were putting up.
After
Yeah, they'll be putting up sheet rock and.
Yeah.
It's actually moving over there. The whole shoot match?
Yep, so right against that wall is, I mean, you could use the wall if you wanted to, it works.
That's up to.
I'll fire it up and see if it
We're gonna keep it.
shows up on the wall. If not, then we'll pull the projector up.
As a light department, it's a different, they're not strong.
Either way, you're gonna need this.
But that sounds.
Yeah.
I don't know much about this stuff.
Really
Well,
don't.
as far as I go with electricity,
So we're gonna keep it, we're gonna clear it surplus. And then we can lease it to town.
Actually, still a building that convenient.
It's the biggest reason, one of the biggest reasons we're moving. We have no room.
Can you
We're
grab
just
that
out,
projector?
just out
over?
running.
Yeah.
We do like 35,000 days in the market. Say it again, I didn't hear
Like
that.
it's big cats like you have, like, there's plenty of room for them.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, if you, we want them together, because there's a lot of interaction between all different products, particularly.
It's definitely a nice building, that's for sure.
It's gonna look nice when it's done. I think what's gonna happen is totally.
Is it process this
Any
yours?
functions that the.
Is this somebody's?
Yeah, you know what, I'll get that,
So related, like people on would be the IT group, maybe human resources, purchasing, people that who could easily say, we're gonna have that. So, you know, we're not gonna have to. So that'll free up time. I mean, they'll just spend.
Audio visual talents, not too good.
John did one.
My son knows them.
We can't put it in the line, like, what's gonna happen is, just release it once we leave. It's not gonna need to be due. We still have to keep it, but I don't know what to do. But I think they'll have, several departments. That's what everybody comes in. Some of the manufacturers, if you send it in for a cabinet,
We're gonna run all the stuff from the base because we got the high real vehicles.
yeah, so Posi, we have a couple of Posi Plus trucks. They'll all do it, you know, we like is when someone comes in and does all of them. The company, I'd have to ask John Crawford, plus we have to do the liners.
Yeah, we're doing the background, we're doing
We always did the gloves, we sell them
Actually
all,
do six.
we do the sleeves, we sell them all.
we're gonna get on the subscription.
I used to have this one, that'd be a great business idea. You go to all the utilities and just take, you'd have to team up with the salesperson and say, okay, I only find a floor, I gotta go to replace it.
Oh, that's good.
Test it, you can buy this test, it's not that expensive. You can do it yourself. You know, you just charge by a piece of, like, there's a lot of stuff that we don't trust in that we have professional. We have too, that's the next problem.
Hey, Nick.
Our
You're
training
only
is
thing on the TV.
Our training is probably triple what we were spending.
We're doing stuff in there.
I don't really need it.
We can use the amounts.
$100 a head.
Thank you.
There you go. Is there someone sitting right there as well?
No, we just all scooted down so they can
Okay, so
set up
three
laptops.
plus
Just three.
Russ, or,
Yep, 3 plus.
and Russ, you were right here?
Yeah, I'm gonna actually
We had a guy.
probably move over a little bit.
We used, public finance with some of the basic training.
So
We had
you
another
can
guy.
just scroll.
Actually, somehow, the state's.
Oh,
okay.
So just use the mouse and scroll, and then you get the,
They've only got 2 slots. But that's,
It's hugely expensive.
We're doing 30 next week.
If you want to grab the light right behind you,
I was gonna grab that water bottle first.
if you can do that.
Is that too dark?
I think it's good. You okay with that?
yeah, you don't want to look at me anyway, so it's better off on the screen.
But we also don't want people falling asleep.
I will try and keep everyone awake. So, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, Airport Management, thank you for the opportunity to be here today. Just want to make one note. We did attend the May 8th Commission meeting, and at that meeting, it was mentioned how much work and time and effort goes into putting together a response for the RFQ, so I appreciate the acknowledgement of that, and then subsequently inviting us in here this afternoon to demonstrate for you some of the projects and examples of projects that we do at airports very similar to Norwood. With me this afternoon is Nick Ippolito. Nick is one of our senior project managers for Gale Associates. He's been employed with Gale Associates since 2008. Among many of Nick's accomplishments, one of the things that I like to boast the most about is when Nick started off early on at Gale Associates, he was the lead resident engineer at the Nashua Municipal Airport for their runway relocation and reconstruction project, runway 1432. It's the second busiest GA airport in New England, and he's done such a great job over the years that he's escalated himself up into the project management role and actually has a crew of his own at Gale Associates, and he's still working at Nashua on their capital improvement program projects. Also with me is Armand Dufresne. Armand's been employed with Gale Associates since 2000. Prior to that, Armand was employed as the manager for aviation planning at MAC, which is now Mass DOT Aeronautics Commission, or Mass DOT Aeronautics Division. So as a result of that, in his time at Mass DOT, he's intimately familiar with the Norwood Municipal Airport, as well as the environmental constraints that the airport is operating under. Further, Armand has 40 years in developing airport master plans and representing clients before state, local and federal aviation and environmental agencies. So a little bit about Gale Associates. Established in 1964, we're approximately 110 plus engineering firm with engineers, planners, architects, landscape architects, and building enclosure specialists. We're headquartered locally in Weymouth, Massachusetts. Our aviation group operates out of our Bedford, New Hampshire office. And some of the things that I like to boast about Gale Associates is the longevity of the employees that are there. And really what makes Gale special in their ability to retain employees is the fact that they have excellent training opportunities, there's room for growth, and those training opportunities are then subsequently passed on to our clients. We take that knowledge and industry expertise, and that's what we deliver for our client airports. So there's that. A little fuzzy, but there's your team right there. So first and foremost is the Norwood Airport Commission, working in conjunction with the airport management. I will be your point of contact along with John Lindberg, who's the principal of Gale Associates. I've introduced you to the engineering side of the house, starting with Nick, the planning side of the house, starting with Armin. In addition to that, Gale has support services outside of just your aviation engineers and planners. Like I said, we have architects, civil engineers, structural engineers, and we also have landscape architects on staff, as well as building enclosure specialists. On the right-hand side, you'll see a suite of sub-consultants that we generally use, that we've been teaming up with for several years now. And the reason why I put those up there was just to demonstrate that we do have outside area of expertise on specific unique projects that may arise at the airport. For example, if you were looking to acquire land or aviation easements, we need sub-consultants such as appraisers and review appraisers and surveyors and stuff like that. These are all companies that we've been working with for several years. We're familiar with them. They're familiar with airport projects, and they're just, like I said, to supplement our team during unique and special projects. So let us assist you. So one of the things that we dove into, in addition to your RFQ and some of the projects that the airport's contemplating over the next 5 years, is we took a look at your master plan as well, the technical update that recently was completed. So the next series of slides, they're Gale projects, of course, but they're really meant to demonstrate our ability to work on projects that are similar to those that the airport is contemplating over the next 5 years. It demonstrates the depth and experience that we have with those. So with that, we're going to jump in, and I'm going to turn it over to Nick to talk about runway extensions and relocations.
Thank you, Matt, and thank you to the Commission for having us in today. I'm going to talk a little bit about our qualifications through these past projects, similar in scope and nature to those that you guys are considering undertaking. The first being runway extensions and relocations. So these are two projects that I was involved with the design and construction of. As Matt alluded to, the photo on the right here is Nashua, New Hampshire, where we took their runway from 5,500 to 6,000 linear feet, complete with an instrument landing system. The ILS, as you can see, well, maybe not, it's a very rare glide slope antenna array. It's called an Endfire. It's one of only 2 AIP-funded Endfire glide slopes in the country. So we have a lot of familiarity with instrument landing systems. And in both of these projects, we also worked with declared distances, and both during construction and after construction to allow the airport to maximize their usable runway length. During construction, it worked out great because in both cases we were able to construct portions of the new runway or all of the new runway without impacting operations at the airport to the point where they had to actually close. So on the left here, this client in Massachusetts, we extended their runway from 3,000 feet to 3,900 feet. And at this particular airport, there was a lot of environmental concerns considering that the entire airport had only 13 acres of upland. Everything else was wetlands. So we performed the tree clearing, we built the new runway. The extensions on both ends were supported by over 2,200 timber piles that were then capped in concrete. We built a reinforced mattress on top of them, and then we built the runway pavement box on top of that reinforced mattress. So as far as geotechnical expertise, I think Gale comes in unparalleled. We are going to construction this summer at Fitchburg, where they're using rapid impact ground improvement. to stabilize the subgrade over a capped landfill to build their runway extension. So again, these types of projects are very familiar to us. We can work with you to, determine the best phasing to maintain your operations. With Nashua, you can see the old runway being removed there. In totality, the amount of time the airport was actually shut down was 20 days. And in the case of both of these projects, we finished on time or ahead of schedule and under budget. At Nashua, to the effect of, I think it was just short of $1 million that they then used to acquire SRE and a couple of properties around the airport. Next slide.
Nick,
please.
where is that airport to the left? I'm sorry.
That is Marshfield.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
So the geometric design and runway incursion mitigation at Towered Airport's runway incursion mitigation is a hot button. And the way we approach solving that problem is by developing alternatives and then communicating with the commissions and airport authorities to allow them to pick the operational scheme that best suits their needs. And then the picture on the right here is a photograph of the actual relocated stub, basically taking out that direct runway, apron to runway access. So very familiar with that. Again, I know you guys are anticipating the relocation of taxiway deltas. So, next slide, please. And then the taxiway realignments, like for example, Charlie here. The photos on the left are the pre-construction photograph here that shows a little kink in this taxiway. This project was to reconstruct the entire taxiway. We added a run-up apron and straightened it out. And then one of the things that I try to facilitate an understanding of in our field engineers is, you could spend $10 million on a project, and the only thing people judge it by are the markings and the lane. So if you can stand on center line and look down the entire taxiway and you see nothing but straight true line, that's going to look better than, if you had $1 million pavement with bad markings. So our attention to detail is very, very strict and unparalleled. Next slide, please. Fencing, gates, and security and access control. We have done over 15,000 linear feet of fence in the last 3 years. We work with our clients to obtain innovative funding mechanisms to pay for non-eligible items, like we're doing a speaker system right now so that people who visit the airport can just call the airport manager's office from right at the gate. We've done wildlife skirts, we've done privacy slats, and we've even done some noise canceling fabric mounted to fence posts, PVC coated, non-PVC coated, we've done it all. Next slide, please. And getting to fueling systems. So the upper left photograph is a project that's currently out to bid. It's at the Fitchburg Airport, and we're hoping to go to construction with that this summer. And then the rest of the photographs are just sort of the finished product. I bet you can guess that the two on the bottom are in Cape Cod. So in areas where the adjacent communities have a concern about the aesthetics of these types of facilities, we can work with the airport and the community to address all of their concerns.
Are these self-service here?
Yes, these are both self-service. And the third one at Fitchburg as well. And one of the things that I like to boast about is we think outside the box quite a bit. And these are some of the examples. The upper left photograph is up at Nashua, where we just reconstructed taxi lanes between the T-hangar complexes. Due to the longitudinal grades, it was not feasible to reconstruct because we couldn't get proper drainage to the structures. So we worked with the DOT and FAA to have approved the first airside application of porous pavement in New England. This was a 2016 project, so it's been in service for 2 years. They have not had any issues with it to date. But in doing so, there was the caveat that if the pavement does fail before its 20-year design life, the airport is on the hook. That FAA and DOT DOT won't fund repairs to that. The bottom photograph here is a conceptual design for a self-serve fuel farm at Mount Washington. This is an example of using the latest software packages to develop these 3D renderings that we can then upload to the internet, send a link to an airport, and then if they have a budget committee meeting or a select board meeting where they'd like to present, you just open it up on the web page and you can scroll around and pan in 3 dimensions. That way you can see how the project would affect the airport and the surrounding community. The photo on the right here shows electrical outlets that were actually designed. I designed those in the field working with the fire chief in the city, as well as the electrical contractor. And the great part about these is we have moved them out from under the wing and up gradient so they do not have to be explosion proof. And the cost of these, basically, it's an L867 junction can with a plow ring grouted in, and we custom fabricated these scalloped covers so that a pilot can park his plane, or before he takes off, if he wants to use the engine heater, he can just grab the handle, lift it up, pull out a 6-foot whip, put the cover back down with the cord coming out through the little opening there, and you can plug right in. When he's done, you can just throw the whip back in the can, put the cover down, and he's good to go. There's no need to remove stanchions if you need to plow snow. The plows go right over them, and the airport has been thrilled with them. I mean, we actually have other consultants start to use that design elsewhere. Another example of our innovation is we were the first consultant in the New England region to apply for and obtain a Type 4 Buy American waiver for a loader purchase. I know that FAA has issued some guidance that says they're no longer purchasing loaders, but that was due to the Type 3 waiver, the 60% or more manufactured in the United States. It's really hard to prove to FAA that something is manufactured 60% or more in the United States. So we thought of a creative bid strategy to get prices for an American-made version and then the actual version that the contractor or the vendor wanted to sell. So that way we could demonstrate that the cost would be 25% higher, and then we had everything we needed to justify the waiver. So again, the first consultant in New England to obtain that waiver. And you know, it's just a testament to our forward-thinking mindset. Next slide, please. So I'm going to hand it over to Matt here to talk about obstruction evaluation and easements.
Thanks, Nick. Yeah, so obstruction analysis and easement and land acquisition. So over the past 5 years, and Russ, you're probably familiar with this, but many of our clients have encountered issues with vegetation growing into the approach surfaces at the airport. Unfortunately, where the trees are growing, it's not always on airport property. In fact, more often than not, it's off airport property, which introduces, you know, the need to deal with residential properties, privately owned residential properties, commercial, institutional properties, things of that nature. So our approach to doing that is to, number one, first get our plan together, identify where the vegetation is, determine the type of vegetation and how removal activities, you know, need to ultimately end up happening. We use photos and plans and stuff like this to work with the Airport Commission, airport management, so that you're fully aware of the issue, what it is that we need to do. And then we do use these same type of photographs and plans to go and work with the property owners. So that way they're fully informed as to what the Airport Commission is looking to do, where these imaginary surfaces are that we're talking about exist over their, you know, property or commercial properties and things like that. And, you know, frankly, it just gives them a good idea of what it is that we're looking to do, because these projects, quite frankly, become delicate situations when you're talking with a, you know, private property owner, a homeowner that's lived in a house for 20-something years with trees and has never known them to be an issue, and all of a sudden there's people, you know, confronting them and knocking on their door, etc. So that's just some of the plans and stuff that we do when we're talking about obstruction analysis and easement and land acquisition. Typically on the heels of that is the obstruction removal itself. Top left photograph, all of that land that was cleared, that was a navigation easement that we acquired over the Massachusetts Audubon Society. It was a 600+ acre sanctuary. So you can imagine, you know, the negotiations that went into acquiring that and demonstrating the need for the safety project and ultimately getting the airport what is required and necessary. Top right-hand photograph, that's just a cool picture that, you know, clearly illustrates the upland clearing versus where the streams and some of the wetlands are. We were able to work with the Department of Environmental Protection at that particular airport to actually cut the vegetation within those wetlands, within the stream areas, to a low enough point that they were below the approach surface, that the airport wasn't going to have to go and revisit that year after year, but that they do have the ability to go back in there and do sort of that continuous maintenance and activity. So just kind of a cool photo demonstrating that and illustrating that. Photo bottom center, certainly after we go in and we do these tree clearing projects, it's important that the restoration efforts are pristine for a number of reasons. One, we want them to be aesthetically pleasing to the airport, neighboring, residents, abutters, and furthermore, if it's on airport property or airport controlled property, we want airport maintenance staff to be able to go back out there and do just routine mowing and that type of maintenance, and not have to be going back there in 20 years and have this thing completely overgrown. So you can see it's set up nicely for any maintenance staff to be able to go out there with a Bobcat or a brush hog or any other sort of maintenance equipment that they have. Next we have permitting and approvals, and I'm going to turn that over to Armand.
Thanks, Matt. Thank you all for having us here. I just want to go over something that Nick forgot to say. That little box that he invented, that was $13,000 a piece. They're normally $40,000 a piece. So it saved a lot of money to that airport.
I apologize.
That's okay. I covered it. Yeah, my name is Armand Dufresne, and maybe I should start at the beginning. I've been doing permitting for about 40 years. I was a regulator, and it just followed me my whole life. Every job I got, oh, you know about permitting? They showed me in that direction. I enjoy it. It's an exercise in coming to consensus, really, with some very difficult situations. While at Gale, we've worked on every kind of permit you can think of locally, not just Conservation Commission, but Board of Selectmen, Board of Appeals, all kinds of special permits, floodplain special permits, site plan, that sort of thing, earth removal permits. For the state, we've obtained several DEP wetland variances. We've done several environmental impact reports, taking them from the draft stage through the final stage, and even up to supplemental final. Coastal restriction orders, we've worked with those. Not many people even know they exist. Actually, DEP didn't know it existed. And conservation management permits are with the rare species people, Natural Heritage. Actually, we're the only company that's ever produced a rare species master plan. And I'll give you a little story about that. We got together with Natural Heritage and came up with the concept of, we got this big airport. It's got developers that want to develop there, and they keep going away as soon as they find out that they have that issue. And so we said, well, why can't we look at the whole airport in total and see what we can come up with? And what we came up with was several of their parcels were eliminated from any further permitting. They were given credit. They had been doing grass mowing on almost 1,000 acres for years. It was a big bird habitat. Nobody ever gave them credit for it. They got credit for that, and then that resulted in lower mitigation ratios in the future. So, and I believe it lasts forever until the environment changes. That's a really big coup there. Natural Heritage is a great organization. Like I said, I was a permitting guy myself, and I know they gotta follow the rules. And so sometimes they can seem kind of difficult to deal with, but a lot of it is really just making sure that you're not stepping on them. They have a job to do as well. Federal permits, we've done numerous, I would say at least in the 20s, environmental assessments. Obviously, every time you do a project on an airport that affects anything, you do an environmental assessment. Worked with the Corps on Section 404 wetland permits, Section 401 water quality certifications. Those are actually a federal permit that's administered by DEP. And then, of course, we've done the stormwater plans, and if you have so much fuel on your property, you need an SPCC, that sort of thing. Coastal zone management consistency approval, that's another one that's a federal approval, but it's handled by the state. And then Section 106 coordination. We were very fortunate to have an airport that had significant Indian. We actually had a site that was about 12,000 years old, and we needed to do some work around this thing. It took a little while, but the Native American tribes came around to our side. We incorporated them into the design of the thing, and it worked out actually very well. The other thing that we've done that's not local, state, federal is regional. We've worked on Cape Cod through the development of regional impact permit. It's just another layer, like your ACEC. It's another layer on top of everything else, and they have their own axes to grind. And but we are familiar with that, and I've been doing this for years. Oh, sorry about that. I've got my own thing here. Non-AIP funding. We've been very fortunate over the last 3 years to be able to get about $1.8 million worth of non-AIP funds mostly from MassDOT with ASMP. And that's resulted in a lot of things. I mean, a lot of SRE equipment, fencing, fuel dispensing, tree clearing in some cases, vegetation management equipment. A lot of it MassDOT has paid 100% for, because they just don't want to keep coming back and doing these big tree clears, which is finally somebody stepped up to the plate on that one. The FAA supplemental appropriations, that's that $1 billion program you probably heard about. Well, we got lucky here. There weren't that many airports that were awarded these grants. We have a client who received $7.5 million to reconstruct their runway, permit it, design it, and do the obstruction removal that's necessary with absolutely no local share, no state share, 100% funded. So we're happy for that one.
Yeah.
Who wouldn't be?
How's it they?
Let me
All the
go.
way.
Yeah, thank you. So why choose us? Well, we do have a really good understanding of the balance between being a decent environmental partner and getting the project done. We're not out here to do science. We're not out here to progress the science. We're out here to find out what is going on, and then how do we get to where we need to go. We tailor our practice to you. We don't ask you to change because you hired us. Our systems actually adapt to you. Whatever it is that you need or want, we change our system to make sure that's the way that you get it. And you're talking virtually anything. We have a couple of airports that don't even have managers. We have one where it's the commissioners that go out and cut the grass and maintain the airport. They have nobody to help them. We do everything. We call them up, we talk to them, we'll draft a letter, put it on their letterhead, send it to them, say, read it, if you like it, send it into FAA, and you're all set. So we take care of them. They're our clients. And that's whether there's a project that's going on or not. When we become a consultant, that's exactly what we are. We have a lot of experience and good relationships with funding agencies. You will get the expertise and staff of a large firm, but we do give the client service and attentiveness of a local firm. And one of the examples of that is one of the guys that worked with us. He's now retired, Arnie Stuyvesant. I don't know if you guys know Arnie. Arnie's getting near 90. And but Arnie he's the guy that started going to all commission meetings. And that's a practice that my company's had now for like 30 years since we've been in business. We attend the commission meetings unless somebody calls us up and says, hey, look, we're just paying 2 bills, don't bother coming down. But other than that, we're there. And there's always special meetings. And then, like I said before, we will function as a true extension of the staff that's here, so that you guys can manage and make sure the operations are fine here at the airport. We'll take care of the other stuff. And thank you very much for having us. And we'd love to have some questions from you guys.
Thank you, first of all. Matt, did you say you would, yeah, you can do the lights if you don't mind.
Yep.
Did you say you would be the point of contact, or is it?
Yeah, so on the planning side of the house, that's generally, that's my area of expertise. If it's the engineering side of the house and you're doing an engineering project, then naturally Nick would be your direct go-to point of contact.
Okay,
Generally speaking, if something is going on, you need someone to talk to, that would be me. But like I said, if it's an engineering project in the works, we'd make sure you have direct contact to Nick.
okay. Anyone else? Russ?
Resident engineering,
Oh, yeah.
who do you typically have? Because it's, I found in the past that it's critical who the person is out in the field doing these major construction
So,
projects.
Before you answer that, if I may, so just getting back to, so number one, we do that in-house, and I'll let Nick elaborate on that, but that's part of what I was talking about with Gail's corporate culture and the leadership programs and the training opportunities. So we do that, and we do that on purpose so that the resident engineers are in-house, and then those individuals grow, up the food chain a little bit and become senior PMs, project managers, et cetera, et cetera. But if you want to.
Yeah, when I started at Gale, I had some really great mentors that sort of promoted the idea in my mind that, if you want to have good field engineers, you got to train them. So, in my 10 years at Gale, 10 plus years, I've done 5 major runway reconstructions. So I've seen just about everything, although I do keep seeing new things every project. But I spend a lot of time with our junior engineers and EITs, making sure that they understand, the means and methods by which these projects are constructed. So that way they know, how drainage pipe should be installed, chink the stone under. They know the properties, materials. I actually have on my desk mason jars full of all the different 209, 154, topsoil, 152. That way they can see it. And I take them out in the field when we hire a new engineer out of college. Say, I'll bring them the construction progress meetings. I'll get them out. I'll have them meet the contractors, see how things go on the project. And I'll teach them about the materials too, because that's sort of what I was really good at in the field. Just by walking on something, you can tell. If you go up on your heels, and your heels sink. If you pick it up, does the material clump into a ball in your hand? Does it smell organic? If you rub it and then drop it, are your hands dirty? These are all properties of the material that can tell you a lot about whether or not it's suitable to build on. So that's where I sort of made a name for myself, and that's what I try to teach to our younger engineers.
Short answer is in-house.
Yes.
They're
Better
in-house, they're
in-house.
Gale employees.
Yeah, Danny's been here, 12 years?
No, Danny started just after me, so I think he's
11
11
years, 9 or 10 years. Yeah, we keep our staff. That's a nice thing about that.
Retention.
About Gale.
We employ, one of our field engineers is also a pilot, so he has a very good knowledge, even just coming right out of school, of how airport operations work. And I'm excited to see, because I think he's ahead of where I was at his age, so he's going to be great when he's older. But yeah, it's-
On the electrical outlets, how long is the longest one been in service?
that was a 2015 project, so it's been a few years.
What airport was that at?
North Adams.
So they plow there, and
Oh, yeah.
has that been an issue?
Not to my knowledge. The issue that they're having is that nobody uses it. But
I'm sorry, the problem is that they use them?
that nobody,
Oh, nobody uses them.
so they don't have a full-time staff. So if someone comes in late at night, they can't, they can't get into the office to pay. So that would mean, unless they schedule it ahead of time, no one's going to be there to turn on the breaker for that hour.
They're a good idea in New England.
Yeah.
They're a good idea.
Well,
Are
excellent.
they just in a regular runway underground can with a plow ring and then?
Yes. So then we had a small standoff in the bottom. That way the transformer is isolated from where the whips are, so you don't have people reaching into a can that has live electrical equipment in it. So we separated the equipment from the whips, and from the preliminary feedback we got, everyone seemed to love it.
Same thing with the porous pavement, actually, that worked out really good. Because that would have cost a lot of money to try to, you gotta imagine these buildings were built in like 1950.
Mhm.
So the area, it just wasn't amenable to draining at all. And they had been puddling for years and years
Right.
and years, and they had no way to figure out how we're gonna do this. And in order to chase everything back, it's a lot of money.
Mhm.
So it came up with the idea, why don't we use porous pavement? And the concern was that it would plug up on here. But you don't use sand, you don't use salt, you don't use all that stuff that normally goes on the street. So it stayed open, and it's been through a couple of years now, and no
Two
problems at
winter,
all.
yeah, 2 winter seasons.
Yeah, there's no problem at all with it. But that saved them a couple of $100,000.
And one of the other things that I didn't mention is that, you know, we do have some very, very small rural airports and airports that are hypersensitive to the cost of some of these projects. So, you know, during design, we take great care and, you know, eliminate the need for change orders and things like that. In my 10 years plus at Gale, I've had one project that ever went over budget, and that was for an unforeseen circumstance. We had a sinkhole on a G5 hangar apron that required emergency repairs, which totaled to, I think, it was like $68,000. They had this old clay pipe that kept breaking every time we tried to attach to it. So, I think our track record speaks for itself. Again, we don't design thing these projects anticipating change orders and contractors. Another thing we do really well in the field is, not strangle the contractor with the spec books. We want to facilitate a team mentality, make everyone feel like they're on the same team. We get much better results from a contractor if they know that they're on the team, and not just contractor versus engineer. It's been a rewarding experience, and really, I do love this company. It's a great company.
Great. Thank you, Matt, Nick, Ahmad, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Chairman, may I ask
Nice
how
to-
how quickly are you
nice to
looking
meet
to
you,
make a
Joe.
decision?
So we have to have a decision by June,
Nice to meet you.
yeah, sometime in June. So we want to do it sooner than later.
Thank you for your time, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Great job.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Nick.
Thank you
Good
so much.
job.
Pleasure meeting you, thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
You guys have a great day.
Thanks, you too.
Oh, did you sign this thing?
I did sign
Yeah,
it.
they may
Oh,
have-
okay.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Well, I hope it's not death by PowerPoint on a Thursday afternoon for you guys.
Yeah, we were preparing that. I was watching the Bruins game last night at home. Putting that PowerPoint together.
That was a tough
That's
one.
frustrating.
The last 2 minutes of that third period, though, I held my breath for the entire 2 minutes. It was, man, we're
It's sudden death.
Great hockey.
It's all,
Oh, yeah.
it's all safe.
It's intense.
Who's the child? Where's Ron to wake up?
Projector, I mean the stand.
That was
The stand is over there. Where's
That would have been great
Oh,
to
you
have
got
had
that. Okay.
2 wins going into St. Louis. I think St. Louis
Oh,
is
did we-
tough to beat them there.
Did we want to leave this room
Great
for
fall.
Dean King?
Well, Jeff asked if he could use it, but if he can shine it up against the wall, I don't think he need the,
The wall's been working fine.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, we'll see.
Yeah, that's on the way out. He works right across the parking lot.
Really?
Yeah, literally, I look out my window, I can see Dean Pay. Different building, but.
Yeah, I was down at the Florida Airports Council conference last April, and one of the airports came up and they're like, hey, what is it about New England? Why are all the consultants from New England? and specifically Manchester, New Hampshire.
Yeah,
Jacobs, HTA.
They're all out there.
There's a bunch
Yeah,
of
we're
us.
all, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just,
oh, that's
Hey,
interesting.
it's tax-free.
That is nice.
So I was gonna tell you, Arnie Steinmetz was the airport manager
I know.
before Tom Mara.
I was just talking to Tom this
Yeah.
morning, actually.
Arnie was, in fact, he went from here to running Mass Aeronautics Commission.
Yeah.
Good old
When was
days.
the Florida convention?
last year it was in Tampa.
Yeah.
Yep, it was the annual conference.
It's their
It was
50th
like-
this year.
I'm sorry?
50th, their 50th anniversary is this year.
I can tell you what, if you like drinking, go down to that conference.
I ran Palm Beach International Airport for 8 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I grew up in Palm Beach County, in Boca Raton.
Okay.
I went to high school at Olympic Heights. But yeah, you know, that,
I've
You
got
came up to UNH?
Yeah.
my family's from here originally.
Oh, okay. I was gonna
So
say,
yeah,
that's-
they decided to move when I was 17. And,
Okay.
yeah, I got dragged.
That's good enough.
But yeah, you know, I was talking with the bar manager down there at the hotel where the conference was, and he said the only group of people he's ever seen drink more was the NFL Players Association. By the second day, I was like, I gotta go home. I can't
Which
stay
airport was it that asked you about the people being from New Hampshire? Was the guy from Palm Beach, Pete Labby? He's
Still
from
filming?
Rochester.
You still filming?
I honestly
Oh,
don't know.
okay.
It might have been
Oh,
the guy
whoops.
from Naples.
Don't mention any names.
Yeah.
I apologize.
He was my boss at Palm Beach.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's a
I
good
had
guy.
the pleasure of meeting him. Our office is in Orlando, so yeah, it's 3.5, 4 hours to get down to Palm Beach County from there.
Everything's 3 and a
Man.
half, 4 hours from Orlando.
All right, well.
Gentlemen, thank you again.
Thank
Appreciate
Thank you,
it.
guys.
Good luck with the decision as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Go get Jeff. and-
Yeah.
I totally forgot about that.
Ready to go? You good with PowerPoint or you doing PowerPoint? Because it's been a while, so it was fun. So the cameras are rolling, you guys.
Okay.
Set up, and Kevin just stepped out for a second.
Oh, all right, so
Um,
we'll wait for Kevin to come back.
Yeah. I'll get this out of the way. Sign.
Mark,
Thank you.
Thank you.
you're welcome. Kevin's sitting here, right?
Right here, actually. Let me sit
Oh,
down.
he's over there? Kevin moves
Where is he?
seats?
Well,
Oh, so you could watch. I get it.
It's a great project for the high schoolers to come in. We're going to do the same in Rangeley as well, where most of your labor is paid for. To answer your question directly, there may be some state funds available, but for the most part, my experience has been that it's been just a locally appropriated fund, not AIP eligible.
okay.
So would not be federally funded.
There have been also tax credits. Those tax credits have expired.
Yes, unfortunately, in Massachusetts they have.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, there's some other, and you guys probably don't know this, but I work for the electric utility. Jeff definitely doesn't like it. So, you know, that type of project, even though it sounds good, it's not really, unless someone's paying for it, there's a rate, like the investor-owned utilities around us have mandated rates that they have to give. We don't have that. So the purchase power agreements we would have would not be as attractive. However, there's still some money out there for projects the state just approved for,
Sure.
like the munis, and this might be one of them that's under a certain level. might be something we could talk about and maybe get
Yeah,
something.
as
Yeah.
Guy said, Kevin, is that, you know, Mass DOT, I think, has been pretty good if they look at something that's important to an airport and it can
Mhm.
help your sustainability. And I think you've seen over the years how MassDOT is willing to participate in things that help the airport. Obviously, FAA, no, because that's just not, doesn't qualify. But
Sure.
my goal would be is if we can get there and we can create some upland, if we can, because again,
Yeah.
that's an if, not a when, that we would work to, you know, see if we could get some of that funding and, you know, show that how much it would help the airport to do that. Because you're right, I mean, if you have to pay for it, the return isn't, you know, takes a
Yeah.
while.
It does, but not that it's something we would certainly be interested in even then.
Right.
But, you know, we were also thinking maybe the parking lot. So-
Yeah, no, that's right.
Which is that's also mentioned in the master plan.
Yeah.
We're kicking around ideas.
Sure.
Taxiway Charlie, we have floodplain issues, and one of the big challenges with Taxiway A was finding mitigation for filling. When we realigned it, we filled floodplain. And the same thing is likely to happen. It's not even so much wetlands. I think there are sections in there that are channels, and so they wouldn't be considered wetlands. We still have to mitigate for floodplain. And so the amount of ground above the floodplain, upland area for development may be restricted to something that would be limited, like perhaps a solar array. But with Rutland, Guy was very successful up there with a very large electrical bill. It is something that does benefit an airport,
Mhm.
where it might not benefit the rest of the municipality so much. Reducing his electric bill is something that you can look at to increase or, well, decrease your overall operating costs and maybe increase some revenue. It's not finalized yet, just an idea.
Yeah, there's some front-end cost, of course, and there's a return on investment, of course, but once it's done, Rutland, as an example, January or December of 2015, they commissioned the array. Their power bill annually was $25,000 a year, about half of what you have here. They have not paid a power bill since. Now, granted, there was an upfront cost, but the return on investment was calculated at 7 years.
And you know, as far as how things have gone in the 12 years, Jeff, did I have more hair 12 years ago?
And I did too,
Did you?
probably.
I can't remember, but it's gone very well, and I think because of your relationship, you know, with the state agencies, federal agencies, you know, we tend to really do well, and we get, you know, grant money, and even little things like, I don't know how involved you were in that little parking lot that we got at the very end for the SRE building. It's, you know, it's $100,000 that just came in because of the respect, I think, that you've garnered and
Well, I think
deserve.
it's a team, and I will give that one more to Mark, but
Yeah.
I truly believe it is that team thing, and when they look at an airport that has been able to use money wisely, get jobs done, that, you know, money does become available, and when it does, they look for the airports that they know could probably step up and get that done. And again, it's a team effort, so it's all of us, but we're proud of being a piece of that and being able to, that they do look at it. And I
Yeah.
appreciate you saying that, Kevin,
Yeah,
because
it's the truth. You're always ready, and you know that if we have a project that we can, you know, they're getting to the end of their fiscal year and they're looking at something, and we're ready to go. It's not like we have to say, well, you know, hold on, we have to plan it. It's done. They know about it. You're ready to go.
Right.
We're
and
ready to go.
And I think
Work.
that trust is because I'm sure you do recall that when we did Taxiway Alpha and we were getting close to getting our variance and the deadline was May 1st. And I remember talking to FAA and said, you know, shooting for that, we might go a little over. And they said, fine, we trust you, we're going to hold it for you. And we came through. I mean, if we didn't, then it would have been shame on us. But we were able to do it. And I think that says a lot about, again, it's a team thing. They trust Norwood that when we say it, you say it, that we're going to get it done. And that goes a long way with that and getting the money.
Agreed.
So we're proud of that.
Fine. I think I'd like to emphasize not just the funding agencies, MassDOT and FAA, but really the relationship with the DEP and the
Permitting
Concom.
agencies.
Sure.
Because the projects we're looking at here do have potential wetland impacts, other environmental impacts. And we've really established a very good working relationship and trust with them, with Lisa Rose and Tom McGuire. And it's, you know, it's something that's benefited us, especially with Taxiway A. We were able to get that done, as Jeff said, in 8 months. And I know other consultants haven't been able to do it for many, many years. So with those upcoming projects in mind and that relationship we have, I think it would benefit us that the permits that we're looking at should be achievable.
Excellent.
So Jeff, just on a personal note, I mean, you've been basically a regular attendee at our meetings. You know, if the commission voted to invite Du Bois and King back, are we expecting the same treatment, having you here?
Absolutely. I mean, that's it. The continuity, I think, is what, you know, I like being here. I really do. I mean, you're more than a client. I really, you know, enjoy the relationships that I have with all you folks. And it's important for us to be here. I think it's, you know, it's just important to be here to understand what's going on. And we try to, you know, help out when we can, like I say, for issues that other than an AIP project. So I'll continue to be here. Mark will continue to be involved with every design as well as myself. As I say, Guy's kind of new, but he brings some innovative thoughts from a pilot perspective and a planner's perspective, which is great. You know, Mark and I are engineers, which is good, but it's nice to have, you know, Guy brings that added benefit from the piloting perspective, which I think has been really helpful for us in going through this master plan. So, yeah, I mean, I guess what I'd like to say, it sounds boring, but you shouldn't experience any change. What you've seen is what you're going to continue to get. What we committed to 12 years ago. If we're lucky enough to be reselected, we'll be the next 3 years, and hopefully the next 3 years. Maybe we can talk 2 decades at some point, but not to get ahead of myself. But it's been a real pleasure working with all of you. It really has.
I hope I'm still here.
Hopefully so.
Anything else?
No.
Okay.
No.
Thank you.
Actually,
Yeah,
one
John.
question I had was the solar array. Does it make sense to put it in that area if there's a flooding issue? You're close to operating aircraft. One aircraft gets blown. I'm looking at it from a safety perspective. Wouldn't it be more beneficial if we have all this hangar space to put stuff on south-facing hangar roofs versus that area? Snow removal, damage.
Yeah, you know, you guys, actually both of you, Kevin and yourself, Michael, brought up a couple interesting things. Roof mounted versus ground mounted, and power purchase arrangement versus do you own it outright. And, you know, so for solar, my experience has been ground mounted. A lot of the buildings that are in place have been designed, the wind loads, snow loads, everything have been designed to a certain standard. And to add additional load to these buildings, potentially, the current buildings, would require some design evaluation. And is it possible? Absolutely. I can tell you at Brunswick Municipal or Executive Airport in Maine, I was just there yesterday at a meeting, and they followed what I had recommended to them, which is ground mounted. They have a lot of old naval buildings, but they said, you know, the design just was going to create an excessive amount of load on those buildings. So for new buildings, absolutely. Mark was great with solar canopies in the parking lot. That makes good sense because it's a new structure, it can be designed that way. The current buildings, again, it would have to be evaluated. My recommendation is ground mounted, never fully articulated. I think that's just a waste of mechanics and nuts and bolts. I think fixed mounted, 45 degrees, whatever the latitude is, and you will generate enough power here. As for the location, that can be evaluated. The taxiway, and where it currently is, Taxiway Charlie, is that the best place, or there's also talk is whether to put hangars on that. But there's a lot of, you know, you need room for wingtips and all that. So it just, at this point, at a planning level, what we're saying to the FAA with this master plan, who, by the way, never approves a master plan, they always accept a master plan or not accept it. If they accept it, it's basically telling them that you guys are interested in solar and that there would have to be continued, you know, planning for the final location and where it's put. And as for power purchase arrangement versus owned, really it's that, do you want to own it? Or do you want to give up your land for a while to another entity to come in? And then it gets a little weird with the FAA and George Pintelli, you mentioned. I've known him for years, worked with him for years. Whether or not you're going to get the right fair market value for that person to give you a 5% reduction in your power bill, or 10%, or whatever arrangement they give you. Or you could own it and you have 100% of your power bill is reduced. So those are the things that certainly we'll have to look at for the solar.
Yeah, and I think, John, to clarify too, so that space, I think what we're really looking to do, whether it's solar or whatever, is try to gain back some upland to do something.
Right.
You know, you guys are, as you all know, we don't have to keep repeating it, you just don't have much buildable area for anything. And so if we're successful in trying to relocate Charlie and gain some upland, whether it is solar, which may or may not be a good idea, because Kevin and John, you bring up good points, but it would be some kind of upland to do something. And could it be a hangar? Sure, probably. Again, we'd have to look at clearances and stuff and, where the wetland lines are. But to me, at this point, any upland would be a win if we can get some of it. And do it in conjunction with, unfortunately, doing this taxiway Charlie move, which we have to do. I mean, I know nobody here is excited. I know Pat from the tower is not excited. We're not excited, but you don't have a choice.
Mhm.
FAA is saying you must move it. You cannot have the direct connection. So it is what it is. We got to do it. So let's see if we can make something creative out of it and get some kind of a win out of it. While FAA is paying to relocate, can we salvage some upland to do something? Is it solar? I don't know, but I think we're open to looking at it, but mainly just salvaging some upland area to do something. So.
All right, great.
All set.
All right.
Yep, thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank
Thank you. Look forward to continuing to work with you really seriously. So thanks again.
Yeah.
Maybe the plan will look at this and do most of the presentation.
Right.
But I do that now. Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Shaughnessy.
After listening to the presentations and reading the proposals, I'd like to make a motion to keep Boys and King as our airport engineer for the next 3 years.
Motion?
Don't think we should sit back and have a couple discussions about a couple of different things?
Yeah.
I just made some notes, and one of them was, they all brought a lot of good stuff to the table. I really like those electric cans that they had,
Mhm.
but that's not the way you choose an engineer. I understand that. Airport Solutions Groups, they had they talked about that ILS landing system. I know that we have GPS, that's not even a concern for us. Gale Associates, did they used to do anything with Norwood?
No.
No? Okay.
Yeah, they're a big outfit.
No, they are, yeah.
The town has used them for other things.
We actually used them at Palm Beach International Airport years and years ago for a couple of projects I know. One of the things about Du Bois and King I liked was they have been here for a while, and they do have experience with the variances and whatnot. Are you happy with everything that they've done?
I think Du Bois and King has done a great job. I work very closely with Jeff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he and I tend to be on the phone 2-3 times a week. Not only does he help us with the projects that are AIP projects that they as engineers are going to get paid for, but Jeff has helped me out on any number of projects, never charged the town. For administrative projects particularly, and the administrative end of projects, when he had to go out after 2 floods and take a look at the electrical systems. Those are the 2 projects. Those are the 2 that come to mind. He's very well respected, as is Bob Mallett and Chris Willenborg. I don't know as much about Gale. Armin Dufresne and I worked very closely together. He worked with a lot of airport managers when he was with Mass Aeronautics. He was the environmental guy. So I worked with Armin on vegetation management, our vegetation management program, and he was very knowledgeable when it came to the environmental. I don't know as much about Matt and Nick, although I've heard that they individually are solid planner and engineer. But as far as Du Bois and King, they've done some great work for us.
Okay. All right. I just had some.
No, that's great, John.
Just agree to agree. I want to make sure that we're doing what's best for the airport.
Yeah, and we don't want to make it a rubber stamp. I mean, when Russ came to me saying we had to advertise again, I was leaning towards moving on, just because I think it's good to get new blood in here to help us with ideas. And ASG, I've always respected them, basically because Bob Mallett and Chris Willenborg. But when it really gets down to doing some soul searching, Du Bois and King has really never disappointed us.
Right.
I couldn't say one really
And that is important. I mean,
bad
it's-
thing, you know.
Relationship is very important in
Yeah.
business.
I was prepared to move on, as hard as that would have been to not work with Jeff, because he's solid, he's, you know, responsive, I mean, just seeing how he operates with Mass DOT, FAA, and the permitting, they just, like they said in their presentation, they trust him. And
That's a big part of it.
and I think a lot of things have happened because of Jeff Adler personally, so I'm very comfortable with
Okay, well,
Kevin's
here's
motion.
You've already made the motion, then I'll go ahead and I'll second it. I think that if you guys are that impressed with them, I mean, they've always been good to the town, so there's no reason to change that.
Been very happy with them, kept an open mind, read the proposals, listened to the presentations. I don't think we could go wrong with either of the other two, but
I think they're all great candidates.
yes, but I look at it like, well, we don't, and I think back to, I was here 12 years ago, and, I heard the rumblings of, maybe it's time, we'd like to have a presentation at every meeting, we'd like to make sure, that we're a little bit more comfortable with who's helping us, and I think we have been very comfortable with, I think that we get the money that we need as far as grant assurances, they're very on top of the plans that we're trying to make, and you can hear just by that quick 20-minute presentation that they have the ideas that we're looking for. I don't think they understand how the solar works as far as the money, but that's okay. We can, I think there's money available in other ways that they maybe don't know about yet, but that's part of what that give and take is. We'll talk to them and try and work together with them as far as working out a purchase power agreement, not an arrangement, but it's a contract with the utility, not.
I will say that this project, the Taxiway Alpha project, with all the challenges, the environmental challenges that we had on the project, I had 6 FAA people in the office on a safety meeting a few weeks ago, and I had the aerial up, and one of the FAA individuals who was very familiar with the airport works, John Burke, and he said it was a small miracle that you were able to actually complete that project given all of the environmental challenges. So it really spoke to the engineering and the construction. There was a lot of effort that went into getting that project completed because all the odds were against, given the heavy rains and all the erosion controls and all of the maneuvering that had to be done primarily by Du Bois and King, as well as the airport, to get the additional financing for the erosion controls. The cost overruns that were beyond everybody's control, but really Jeff took the point on that, and that was huge. I
It
thought.
was very big. It was a lot of money, and we were really grateful that he was able to
And 25 inches of rain, those 3 months of construction.
So that was Jeff. I would say that was your engineering program manager who really made that happen.
Right.
So there's a motion and there's a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? No. Thank you.
All right. Do we need a motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman?
I believe we do.
So moved.
Motion made.
Second.
And second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? No.